Well, you got some crazy fans. I think we got an eight-year-old fan. Where's My Joy? What a name. Hey, My Joy, I hear you have a question for Caitlin.
Morning, everyone.
What's your question for Caitlin?
My question today is, what's the hardest part about playing basketball?
At the end of the day, none of it's hard. You're really lucky that you get to be able to do it. So, obviously there's ups and downs and there's hard moments, but that's just life.
Caitlin Clark making time for her fans. Everywhere Caitlin Clark has gone, she has been swarmed.
Caitlin Clark may be out injured, but the vibe's still very high at WNBA All-Star Week.
Imagine this. The arena is packed, fans are screaming Caitlin Clark's name, and all cameras are locked on the biggest WNBA star of this generation. But then, out of nowhere, a young black kid in the audience raises his hand during a post-game Q&A. Everyone expects a normal, harmless question, maybe about basketball.
And it's something that never gets old, truly. Like, to see young girls and even young boys wear your jersey or want a picture or want an autograph. Every time I walk out in the arena and people are screaming and cheering, like they could care less how many points I score or how many minutes I play.
Maybe about her favorite player. But what came out of his mouth? Nobody was ready for it. Why do you get all the attention while other black players don't? The room went silent. Caitlin froze. Reporters' jaws dropped. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. And for the first time in her career, Caitlin Clark didn't have an immediate answer. This wasn't just a random question. It was a question that cut straight through the surface of the WNBA. It's the very heart of what people have been whispering for months. Why does Caitlin Clark dominate headlines? Why are ticket sales and TV ratings suddenly skyrocketing only when she steps on the court? And most importantly, what does that say about the WNBA's history, its marketing, and how it treats black athletes who've been putting in the work for years? The kid didn't mean harm, but his innocent words exposed a deeper truth.
Caitlin Clark will be assistant Sandy in coaching the basketball team.
A truth the league isn't ready to face. Today, we're breaking it all down. What really happened in that viral moment? Caitlin Clark's raw, unfiltered reaction. And how this one shocking question might change the entire future of the WNBA forever. Stay tuned. It's because this isn't just about basketball. It's about race, fame, and the power.
Caitlin Clark outside taking pictures of fans outside of Cambridge.
She has literally not been seen without about 10 security guards.
Or of perception. The arena was still buzzing after the final buzzer. Caitlin Clark had just dropped another jaw-dropping performance, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. The crowd was electric, chanting her name, holding up homemade signs with messages like Queen of the Court and Future of the WNBA. Reporters crowded near the media section, ready to flood social media with her latest highlights. Fans lined up for autographs. It was the same scene that had been playing out in every city since she entered the Lega phenomenon. The WNBA hadn't seen in decades. But this night was different. After the game, the team held a special fan Q&A session. Kids, teens, and families got a chance to ask their hero anything. It was supposed to be lighthearted, fun, and family-friendly. A PR move to make the league feel more connected to the community. Caitlin smiled as she took her seat at center court, holding a microphone. She'd done hundreds of these before answering questions like, "What's your favorite shoe?" or "Who's your favorite player growing up?" She was expecting the same routine. The moderator called on a young boy sitting in the front row. He couldn't have been more than 11 years old, with a bright smile and nervous energy. He wore a WNBA jersey, but not Caitlin's. It was an older one, with the name of a veteran black player who had been in the league long before Caitlin arrived. He stood up, the mic shaking slightly in his hand, and asked the question that would silence an entire arena. Why do you get all the attention while other black players don't? You could feel the energy shift instantly. The crowd murmured. Some gasped. Parents exchanged awkward glances. Reporters sensing a story immediately turned on their cameras. Caitlin blinked. She opened her mouth to respond. But nothing came out, for the first time in her young career. The most media-trained athlete in the league looked completely caught off guard. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't said with anger. The boy's voice was soft, genuine, even a little confused. He wasn't trying to be political. He was just asking what was on his mind. Why did Caitlin Clark, a newcomer, instantly become the face of the league, while players like A'ja Wilson, Brittany Griner, and other black superstars have been dominating for years without the same hype? Seconds felt like minutes. Caitlin finally leaned forward and said softly, "That's a really important question." But she didn't have an immediate answer. The moderator quickly tried to move on to another fan, but it was too late. Moment had already gone viral. Someone in the crowd had recorded it. Within minutes, the clip was spreading across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The caption read, "Young fan asks Caitlin Clark the question everyone is thinking." Millions of views poured in. But let's pause here and think, why did that one innocent question hit so hard? Because it wasn't just about Caitlin. It was about the WNBA as a whole. For years, the league had been filled with incredible black athletes who played at the highest level. They were champions, MVPs, pioneers, but mainstream. Media coverage? Barely there. Ratings? Modest at best. Ticket sales? Average. Then came Caitlin Clark, a white player from Iowa, who broke college scoring records and had a flashy style that appealed to casual fans. Suddenly, the WNBA was on ESPN every night. Tickets were selling out. Jerseys were flying off the shelves. Was it her talent? Absolutely, she was undeniably special. But was it only her talent? Or was there something deeper at play? Uncomfortable about the way sports audiences and media value certain players over others. That one little boy, without even knowing it, had cracked open a conversation the league had been avoiding for years. Caitlin sat there quietly, still processing. The PR team whispered behind the scenes. Teammates shifted awkwardly in their chairs. This wasn't a question she could answer with a joke or a quick one-liner. This was a question that required honesty, nuance, and maybe even an acknowledgement of privilege, a word that had never really been associated with her before. And while Caitlin hesitated, the cameras kept rolling. People online started debating immediately. Some defended her, saying she had nothing to do with how the media chose to cover her. Others said this was proof of what they'd been saying for years, that the WNBA and the public only cared when a white player came along who could be marketed as relatable. It was messy, it was emotional. And it was only the beginning, because the boys' question wasn't going away. In fact, it was about to explode into one of the biggest conversations the WNBA and Caitlin Clark had ever faced. This is where we have to dive deeper. Why does Caitlin Clark get this level of attention? Is it really just about her once-in-a-generation talent? Or is it about something bigger, something systemic? The video of that little boy's question spread like wildfire. Within an hour, sports networks were replaying the clip on loop. Twitter Spaces popped up with heated debates. TikTok creators made reaction videos. And in the middle of it all, Caitlin Clark, just 22 years old, found herself at the center of a conversation she didn't start but couldn't avoid. This wasn't just about one awkward Q&A. It was about years of unspoken tension in women's basketball. To understand why that question stung so deeply, you have to look at the history of the WNBA for decades. The league has been dominated by black athletes, legends like Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Tamika Catchings, Maya Moore, Sylvia Fowles, and so many others. They built the foundation. They carried the league through its toughest years. They were champions, MVPs, Olympians, and yet mainstream America never embraced them the way they deserved. Ratings stayed modest. Sponsorships were scarce. The media coverage was minimal compared to the NBA or even college sports. Then, fast forward to Caitlin Clark, a white sharpshooter from Iowa who broke every scoring record in college basketball history. Her deep threes went viral. Her fiery confidence made headlines. She brought in new fans who had never watched a WNBA game before. Suddenly, arenas were sold out. Networks were bidding for broadcast rights. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Caitlin wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just playing her game. But the way the world reacted to her exposed an ugly reality. Sometimes it takes a white athlete for mainstream audiences to finally care about a sport long dominated by black players. That's what the boys' question tapped into. It wasn't really about Caitlin personally, it was about the system. Why had A'ja Wilson, arguably the best player in the league, never received this level of hype despite being a two-time MVP? Why didn't Brittany Griner's dominance move the needle the same way? Why did legends like Simone Augustus retire with barely a fraction of the spotlight? The WNBA had tried to market these players, but it never broke through like Caitlin's. A rival did. And so the debate began. Was Caitlin a once-in-a-generation talent who simply earned this spotlight? Or was she benefiting from the privilege of being a white athlete in a league filled mostly with black players? Or maybe, was it both? When the clip went viral, Caitlin stayed quiet at first. No Instagram posts, no quick PR statement. She just disappeared from social media for a few days. Meanwhile, her teammates were bombarded with questions. She didn't ask for this. One teammate said, "She's just hooping." But yeah, the question isn't wrong either. Even other players in the league started weighing in, some subtly, some directly. A'ja Wilson tweeted a simple message. "We've been saying this for years. Now a kid says it and y'all finally listen." Brittany Griner posted a photo of past WNBA greats with the caption, "They've been the blueprint." Don't forget it. It was clear the conversation wasn't just about Caitlin, it was about the league. It's the media and the fans. And let's be real, the WNBA itself had leaned heavily into the Caitlin Clark hype. She was on every poster, every promo. The league wanted her as the face of the future because she was marketable in a way corporate sponsors liked. They were filling seats and selling jerseys like never before. But at what cost? Behind the scenes, some veteran players felt overlooked. They had been grinding for years to elevate women's basketball, only to watch a rookie get more coverage in one season than they had in their entire careers. This tension was already bubbling. Quietly, but that little boy's question blew the lid off. How did Caitlin respond? A few days later, she finally addressed it in a carefully crafted statement at a press conference. Her voice was calm, but you could tell she'd been thinking about it a lot. She said, "That young fan asked a question that's really important. I can't speak for the media or the league. But I do know there are so many incredible players who deserve the same respect and recognition I've been fortunate to receive. Players like A'ja, BG, legends who paved the way for my wouldn't even be here without them. So I'm grateful for the attention on the game, but I hope it continues to shine on everyone, not just me." It was a thoughtful answer, humble, respectful. She didn't get defensive and she didn't dismiss the question. But even with that statement, the debate didn't stop because it wasn't something a single press conference could fix. Sports analysts started weighing in. Some said it was unfair to blame Caitlin for systemic issues. Others argued that the league was exploiting her image while sidelining others. Fans split into camps, some saying the question was out of line for a kid, others saying it was the most honest thing anyone said about the WNBA in years. And then there was the media. Talk shows turned it into a headline war. Caitlin Clark confronts race in the WNBA. Did a kid just expose the truth about women's basketball? Is Caitlin Clark privileged or just that good? Suddenly, this wasn't just a basketball story, it was a cultural story. Meanwhile, that young boy and his family were interviewed by local news. His mom said he wasn't trying to stir up controversy. He was just a fan of the game who noticed something didn't feel right. He loves Caitlin, she said. But he also loves A'ja Wilson. And he couldn't understand why one gets so much more attention than the other. It was innocent, pure, and yet it sparked a firestorm that even the league couldn't contain. The WNBA now had a choice. Continue riding the Caitlin wave without addressing the deeper issues, or confront the uncomfortable reality of why this wave existed in the first place. And that's where the story takes a bigger turn, because after this viral moment, players started speaking out louder. Sponsors began making new promises, and the league quietly started planning a meeting with team reps to discuss how to balance the spotlight. Moving forward, but here's the thing. Conversations like this don't just end with one meeting. They either spark real change, or they fade away until the next controversy. So the real question became, would this moment actually change the WNBA? Or would it just be another headline forgotten in a week? The days after Caitlin Clark's statement felt like a turning point for the WNBA. Social media was still buzzing. News outlets kept replaying the viral clip, and now even mainstream talk shows, the ones that rarely discussed women's basketball, were weighing in. Fans flooded comment sections with their opinions. Some praised the boy for his honesty, saying things like, "out of the mouths of babes." Finally, someone said it, and kids see the truth without the filters adults put on it. Others felt it was unfair to put Caitlin in that position, saying she's just playing ball. She didn't ask for the media to treat her differently. Or, this should be a question for the league and the networks, not her. The conversation had officially moved beyond basketball. It was now about race, media bias, and what it really takes to make women's sports truly mainstream. Meanwhile, inside the WNBA offices, the pressure was mounting. Sponsorship deals tied directly to Caitlin Clark's image were at an all-time high. Ticket sales for her games were outselling entire seasons for other teams. But the league knew it couldn't afford to alienate its veteran stars or its core fan base, many of whom had been supporting the league long before Caitlin arrived. So the WNBA quietly began holding internal meetings. Team representatives, player union reps, and league executives gathered to talk about the elephant in the room. How do they balance the Caitlin Clark phenomenon without disrespecting the legacy of the Black athletes who built this league? One veteran player reportedly spoke up in the meeting and said, "We're happy the league is finally getting attention. But don't rewrite history. Don't erase the work we've done just because it's easier to market someone who fits a certain image." Those words hit hard because deep down, everyone knew they were true. Outside the league offices, the media frenzy only grew. Sports journalists started publishing op-eds about the racial dynamics of women's basketball. Some articles highlighted how Black athletes in the WNBA had been undervalued for years, despite their dominance. They pointed out how Aja Wilson, a two-time MVP and champion, never got the same national commercials or primetime game slots. Others wrote about how Caitlin Clark, despite being at the center of the storm, had handled the situation with grace, acknowledging the issue without making it about herself. One headline read, "Caitlin Clark didn't create the system, but she's forcing us to look at it." Even NBA players chimed in. LeBron James tweeted, "Caitlin's a beast. But don't forget the Black women who've been holding it down in the W for years. They deserve the same love." Chris Paul, a longtime supporter of women's basketball, went even further, saying, "This isn't new. This is how America treats Black athletes unless there's a safe story to sell. Glad the convo is finally happening." The debate was everywhere. Sports talk shows, podcasts, even college classrooms were using the moment as a case study on race, gender, and media representation. Meanwhile, Caitlin's next game sold out again. But this time, fans weren't just wearing her jersey. They started showing up in vintage WNBA jerseys, repping legends like Lisa Leslie, Tamika Catchings, Kemia Moore. It was as if the conversation had reminded people of the players who came before Caitlin. Suddenly, fans were posting old highlights of forgotten WNBA moments, educating new viewers on the league's rich history. Young girls in the stands held up signs that said things like, "We support all W players," and "Caitlin plus Aja equals Queens of the Court." Even during the broadcast, the commentators made a noticeable shift. They didn't just focus on Caitlyn's every move, they highlighted her teammates and the opposing team's star players. It felt more balanced, more intentional. The league even announced a new WNBA Legends Night campaign to honor past greats. And they started scheduling more nationally televised games featuring teams that didn't have Caitlin Clark. Hoping to spread the attention across the league, this was a small step, but it mattered. While all this was happening, Caitlin made a surprising personal move. She reached out privately to A'ja Wilson and a few other veterans to have an open conversation. No cameras, no media, just players talking honestly. Later, A'ja hinted about it in an interview. Caitlin didn't have to reach out, but she did. She wanted to understand. That means a lot. She's young, but she's trying to learn and do this the right way. That moment of humility gained Caitlin even more respected, just as a player, but as a person willing to listen and grow. So what does all this mean for the WNBA's future? In a way, that young boy's question became a wake-up call. It forced the league, the media, and the fans to confront something they'd been avoiding. Yes, Caitlin Clark is a generational talent who deserves the spotlight. But so do the Black athletes who've been the backbone of this league for decades. The incident also proved something powerful. People do care about women's basketball. They just needed a reason to pay attention. And now that they're watching, they're learning the full story. Sponsors began announcing campaigns featuring multiple WNBA stars, not just Caitlin. Media outlets started producing deeper documentaries on the league's history. And fans, they began showing love to everyone, not just the new face of the league. Was the issue fixed overnight? Of course not. These conversations take time, but the needle moved. And it moved because of one simple, honest question from a kid who wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Weeks later, Caitlin was asked about that day again. She smiled and said, "Honestly, that kid changed the conversation in a way none of us expected. I'm proud if my platform can help bring more attention to the entire league." At the end of the day, we all just want the game to grow for everybody. And that's what this was really about. Not tearing anyone down, not choosing one player over another, but finally shining a light on the whole WNBA, past, present, and future. Because one voice can start a question, but it takes all voices to find the answer. If you've made it this far, you've seen how one simple, honest question from a young fan completely changed the conversation, not just for Caitlin Clark, but for the entire WNBA. This isn't just about one player, one moment, or even one league. It's about shining a light on the incredible talent, history, and stories that have been here all along. Caitlin Clark may have brought new eyes to the game, but the truth is, women's basketball has always been filled with legends who deserve the same respect and recognition. So here's what you can do right now. Don't just watch the highlights. Don't just scroll past the debates. Be part of the solution. Support all the players. Learn the history of the WNBA. Share this video with your friends so more people can see the bigger picture. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you think. Do you agree with the question that kid asked? How should the league move forward? Your voice matters, and when fans speak up, the media and the league have to listen. And if you believe women's sports deserve the same energy, the same love, and the same respect, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more untold stories, deep dives, and moments that challenge the way we see the game. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got even more powerful stories to share together. We can grow this conversation beyond just one viral moment. Together, we can give every player the spotlight they deserve. So, join the movement. Be part of the change. And let's keep this dialogue alive, because the future of the game is in our hands.